Have you ever wondered if a single cup of coffee could change 3 lives forever? The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse office as Marcus Rothwell signed another contract without reading it. His assistant, Patricia, had been with him for 8 years and knew better than to interrupt when his jaw was set like that, when his eyes held that distant coldness that made even board members uncomfortable. It was Thursday afternoon in Chicago, and the city below looked gray and uninviting, much like everything else in Marcus's life. At 42 years old, he was one of the youngest real estate moguls in the Midwest, with a portfolio worth over $300 million. He owned hotels, apartment complexes, and commercial properties across 5 states. He had everything except a reason to care about any of it. The intercom on his desk buzzed. Patricia's voice came through, hesitant. "Mr. Rothwell, I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's a situation in the executive lounge." Marcus didn't look up from the papers. "Handle it." "Sir, it involves the new cleaning supervisor's daughter. Security found her on the 42nd floor. She somehow got past the reception desk." Now he looked up. Children weren't allowed in the building during business hours. It was an insurance liability, among other things. "Call her mother and have someone escort the child out." "The mother is here, sir. She's terribly apologetic, but the girl, she's asking to see you specifically." Marcus frowned. "Asking to see me? Why would a child want to see me?" Patricia's voice softened. "She said she has an important question for the man who looks sad." Something about those words made Marcus pause. The man who looks sad. He stood up and walked to the window, seeing his reflection in the glass. Dark circles under brown eyes, a face that had forgotten how to smile. At what point had sadness become so obvious that even a child could see it? "Send them up," he said, surprising himself. "Give me 5 minutes, then bring them to my office." "Sir?" "You heard me, Patricia." He used those 5 minutes to straighten his tie, clear his desk of sensitive documents, and wonder what he was doing. He should be calling building management, filing a complaint about security protocols. Instead, he found himself curious about what question a child thought was so important. The knock came exactly 5 minutes later. Patricia opened the door, and a woman in her early 30s entered, wearing the navy blue uniform of the building's cleaning staff. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and her face was flushed with embarrassment. She held the hand of a girl who looked about 7 years old, with wild curly brown hair and bright green eyes that studied everything with intense curiosity. "Mr. Rothwell, this is Carmen Reyes, our evening cleaning supervisor, and her daughter, Sophie. I apologize profusely for this interruption." "It's my fault entirely, sir," Carmen said quickly, her slight accent making her words rush together. "Sophie was supposed to wait in the break room, but she wandered off. It won't happen again. I'll take her home right now." Marcus looked at the little girl, who was staring at him with an expression of such earnest concern that it caught him off guard. "You wanted to ask me something?" Sophie nodded solemnly. She pulled her hand free from her mother's and took 2 steps forward. "Can I have coffee with you?" The office fell silent. Carmen's eyes widened in horror. "Sophie, you don't just ask people that. Mr. Rothwell is very busy and we need to leave right now." But Marcus held up a hand. He couldn't explain why, but something about the innocent directness of the question disarmed him completely. "Why do you want to have coffee with me?" "Because you look sad," Sophie said simply. "Really, really sad. Like my mom looked after Daddy died. She used to sit alone drinking coffee and crying when she thought I was asleep. But then I started having coffee with her. Well, milk with a little coffee. And she stopped being so sad. So I thought maybe it would help you too." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He hadn't expected such raw honesty from a child. Carmen looked mortified, tugging gently at Sophie's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Rothwell. Sophie sometimes says things without thinking." We'll go now." "No," Marcus said, his voice rougher than he intended. He cleared his throat. "Patricia, could you arrange for coffee service in the conference room? And something appropriate for a child to drink?" Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, sir. Right away." Carmen looked torn between relief and concern. "Sir, you don't have to do this. I understand if you want to file a complaint. I'll accept whatever consequences." Marcus studied her properly for the first time. She had tired eyes, the kind that came from working multiple jobs to make ends meet. Her hands, he noticed, were rough and red from cleaning chemicals. But there was dignity in the way she held herself, a quiet strength that commanded respect. "Mrs. Reyes." "Ms. Reyes," she corrected softly. "I'm not married. My husband passed away 3 years ago." "Ms. Reyes," he continued, "your daughter asked me a question, and I accepted. No complaint, no consequences. Just coffee." He looked at Sophie. "Though I should warn you, I take mine black and bitter." Sophie wrinkled her nose. "That sounds awful. You should try it with cream and sugar. It's much better that way." For the first time in months, Marcus felt the corner of his mouth twitch upward. "Maybe you're right." The conference room was down the hall, a space designed for important meetings with leather chairs and a mahogany table that could seat 20 people. Today, it would host 3 people, and whatever strange conversation was about to unfold. Patricia worked quickly, setting up a coffee service with surprising efficiency. She brought cookies too, and a hot chocolate for Sophie. When she left, closing the door softly behind her, the 3 of them sat at one end of the massive table. Sophie climbed into a chair that was too big for her, her feet dangling well above the floor. She picked up the hot chocolate and took a careful sip, leaving a chocolate mustache on her upper lip. "This is really good. Do you have hot chocolate every day?" "I don't," Marcus admitted. "I usually just have coffee." "That's sad. Hot chocolate is way better." Sophie took a cookie and bit into it enthusiastically. "These are good too. Do you eat cookies every day?" "Sophie, don't ask so many questions," Carmen said gently, though Marcus could see she was fighting a smile at her daughter's enthusiasm. "It's fine," Marcus said. He poured himself a cup of coffee, and on impulse, added cream and sugar. He took a sip. It was sweeter, softer than he was used to. Different. "You're right. This is better." Sophie beamed at him. "See? I told you. My mom always says that everything is better when you share it with someone." Carmen's cheeks colored slightly. Sophie has strong opinions about many things. "How old are you, Sophie?" Marcus asked. 7 3/4. I'll be 8 in December. How old are you?" 42. "Wow, that's really old." Sophie said it without any malice, just stating a fact. "Are you married?" The question shouldn't have hurt, but it did. Marcus set down his coffee cup carefully. "I was. My wife passed away 4 years ago." Sophie's green eyes filled with understanding beyond her years. "That's why you're sad. I was right. You miss her." "Every day," Marcus said, the words coming out before he could stop them. He never talked about Rachel, not to anyone, not even to his therapist before he'd stopped going to sessions. "My mom misses my dad every day too," Sophie said matter-of-factly. "Sometimes she looks at his picture and cries, but she says it's okay to be sad sometimes, as long as you don't stay sad forever. She says Daddy wouldn't want us to stop living just because he's not here anymore." Carmen reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand. "Sophie, maybe we shouldn't—" "It's okay," Marcus interrupted. He looked at Carmen. "Your husband, how did he—" "Construction accident," Carmen said quietly. "Miguel was a foreman. There was a collapse at a site in Milwaukee. He saved 2 men, but he didn't make it himself. I'm sorry. Thank you. Carmen smiled sadly. He was a good man, a wonderful father. Sophie was only 4, so her memories are fading, but I make sure she knows who he was. My dad was really strong, Sophie added proudly. He used to carry me on his shoulders, and I felt like I could touch the sky. Do you have kids, Mr. Rothwell? The question was innocent, but it cut deep. No. Rachel and I were planning to start a family, but we ran out of time. Sophie considered this seriously. That's really sad. You would probably be a good dad. You have kind eyes, even though they're sad. Marcus didn't know how to respond to that. He'd spent 4 years building walls, perfecting the art of being unapproachable, unreachable. And this 7-year-old girl had seen through it all in minutes. They sat there for nearly an hour, an unlikely trio. Sophie did most of the talking, chattering about school, her friends, her favorite books. Carmen interjected occasionally, gently correcting or adding details. And Marcus, who hadn't had a real conversation with anyone in longer than he could remember, found himself actually listening, actually engaged. When Sophie started yawning, Carmen stood up. We really should go. Mr. Rothwell has work to do, and you have school tomorrow, young lady. Can we have coffee again? Sophie asked, looking at Marcus with hopeful eyes. Maybe next week? Marcus should have said no, should have thanked them politely and sent them on their way, returning to his safe, cold, lonely existence. Instead, he heard himself say, Thursday afternoons, if your mother says it's okay. Carmen looked surprised but nodded slowly. If you're sure it's not an imposition. I'm sure, Marcus said, and meant it. As they left, Sophie turned back at the door. Mr. Rothwell, you look a little less sad already. Maybe the coffee worked. After they were gone, Marcus sat alone in the conference room, staring at the empty cups and cookie crumbs. Patricia appeared in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. That was unexpected, she said. Yes. Shall I schedule them for next Thursday? Marcus stood up, straightening his jacket. Yes. 3 o'clock. And Patricia, make sure there are cookies and hot chocolate. She smiled, a real smile he hadn't seen from her in years. Of course, sir. That night, Marcus did something he hadn't done in 4 years. He went to the storage unit where he'd packed away everything from his old life and pulled out the photo albums. Rachel smiled at him from every page, her blonde hair catching the sunlight, her blue eyes full of life and laughter. I met someone today, he said to her picture, feeling foolish, but needing to say it out loud. Well, 2 someones. A little girl and her mother. The girl asked if she could have coffee with me because I looked sad. She wasn't wrong. He traced Rachel's face with his finger. I know you'd want me to move forward. You always hated the idea of me being alone. I just didn't know how until today. I still don't, really. But maybe that's okay. Maybe that little girl showed me something important. That the first step to healing is just being willing to sit down and share a cup of coffee with someone who cares. The next Thursday came quickly. Marcus found himself actually looking forward to 3 o'clock, which was strange and unsettling. He moved a board meeting to accommodate the time slot, something that had his executive team exchanging confused glances. When Carmen and Sophie arrived, the little girl was carrying a drawing. I made this for you, she announced, handing it to Marcus proudly. It was a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures sitting at a table with cups in front of them. One was labeled Mr. Rothwell, one was Mom, and one was me. Above them, a big sun smiled down, and the word Friends was written in uneven letters across the top. It's beautiful, Marcus said, his throat tight. Thank you, Sophie. I wanted you to remember that you have friends now. Sometimes when I'm sad at school, I remember that I have friends, and it makes me feel better. Over the next few weeks, Thursday afternoons became the highlight of Marcus's week. He learned that Sophie loved to draw, that her favorite color was purple, that she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. He learned that Carmen worked 3 jobs, cleaning his building in the evenings, working mornings at a diner, and doing alterations on weekends. She was saving for Sophie's college fund, determined to give her daughter opportunities she'd never had. "You work too hard," Marcus said one afternoon when Sophie was in the restroom. Carmen smiled. "Says the man who reportedly sleeps in his office half the week." He had the grace to look sheepish. "How did you know that?" "The night cleaning staff talks. They say you're always here, that your light is on when they arrive and still on when they leave. I have a lot of work. Or you're avoiding going home to an empty house." Carmen's voice was gentle, not accusatory. "I did that too, for the first year after Miguel died. I worked myself to exhaustion so I wouldn't have to think, wouldn't have to feel. Sophie's the one who made me stop. She needed me to be present, not just physically there, but actually present. She needed her mom, not a ghost." "What changed?" "She asked me one night if I was mad at her. Said it seemed like I was always trying to get away from her." Carmen's eyes filled with tears at the memory. "It broke my heart. I was so focused on my pain that I couldn't see hers. So I made changes. I cut back on work, spent more time with her, let myself grieve properly instead of running from it." "How did you afford to cut back on work?" "I made sacrifices. We moved to a smaller apartment. I learned to be creative with meals, shopping sales, using coupons. We don't have much, but we have each other. And that's what matters." Marcus thought about his vast, empty penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan. He had 2,400 square feet of luxury and loneliness. "You're a good mother." "I try. Sophie makes it easy. She's such a bright, loving child. Sometimes I wonder if she got that from Miguel. He always saw the best in everyone." "She definitely has that gift," Marcus agreed. "She looked at me and saw someone worth talking to, not the cold businessman everyone else sees. Is that how you see yourself? Cold? It's how I've needed to be. If I let myself feel, if I let people in, it hurts too much." Carmen reached across the table and did something no one had dared to do in years. She took his hand. "Marcus, grief is the price we pay for love. You can't have one without the other. And isolating yourself, building walls, it doesn't stop the pain. It just makes you lonely while you're hurting." He looked at her hand covering his, at the simple human connection he'd denied himself for so long. "I don't know how to be any other way anymore. You're doing it right now. You're here, you're talking, you're being real. That's enough for today." When Sophie came back, she noticed their hands and smiled her gap-toothed grin. "Are you guys friends now? Really good friends?" Carmen pulled her hand back, looking flustered, but Marcus answered honestly. "Yes, Sophie. I think we are." The weeks turned into months. Marcus found himself thinking about Carmen and Sophie constantly. He started leaving work at reasonable hours, knowing that arriving home to an empty apartment was different now that he had something to look forward to. He started reading the parenting books Carmen mentioned, not for any particular reason, just out of curiosity. He learned about child development, about the importance of consistency and patience, about seeing the world through a child's eyes. He also started noticing Carmen in ways that made him feel guilty and excited all at once. The way she laughed at Sophie's jokes, how her whole face lit up. The strength in her hands as she wiped down the conference table before they began their Thursday ritual. The way she sometimes caught him staring and would blush, looking away. It was Patricia who finally confronted him. "Sir, I need to say something, and I hope you won't take offense." "Go ahead. You're different lately, lighter. You smile sometimes. You actually leave the office before midnight. And I can't help but notice it started when you began having these Thursday meetings with Ms. Reyes and her daughter." Marcus didn't try to deny it. "They've helped me, in ways I didn't know I needed." "That's good, sir. That's really good. You deserve to be happy again. Ms. Rothwell would have wanted that." Rachel. Marcus thought about his late wife often, but it didn't hurt quite as much anymore. The grief was still there, but it had softened, becoming something he could carry rather than something that crushed him. Thank you, Patricia. Just one more thing, if I may. If you're developing feelings for Ms. Reyes, be very careful. She works for the building management company. There are complicated power dynamics at play. I'd hate to see either of you hurt by accusations of impropriety. She was right, of course. Marcus had already thought about it. He had too much respect for Carmen to put her in an awkward position, but denying his feelings was becoming harder with each passing week. The situation came to a head in November, just before Thanksgiving. Sophie ran into the conference room with a crayon drawing clutched in her hand, tears streaming down her face. Sophie, what's wrong? Marcus was out of his chair immediately, kneeling down to her level. The kids at school are mean, she sobbed. They said I can't be a veterinarian because we're poor. They said poor people can't be doctors for animals. Carmen came in behind her, looking distressed. Baby, those kids don't know what they're talking about. But they said college costs so much money, and we don't have money, and I'll never get to help animals. Sophie's small body shook with the force of her crying. Marcus felt something break open inside him. He'd watched this brave, brilliant little girl bring light into his darkness. He'd watched her mother work herself to exhaustion to provide for her daughter. And now some thoughtless children had crushed Sophie's dreams with careless cruelty. Sophie, look at me, he said gently. She lifted her tear-stained face. Those kids are wrong, dead wrong. Do you know why? Because I'm not poor. Because being poor or rich doesn't determine what you can become. Your mom was right when she said you can be anything you want to be, and I'm going to help make sure of it. Carmen stiffened. Marcus, we can't accept— Let me finish, he said, looking at her intently. There's a scholarship fund my company runs for children of employees. It covers everything: college tuition, books, housing. We set it up years ago, but we never properly promoted it. I'm going to make sure Sophie qualifies, along with every other child whose parents work in buildings we own or manage. That's too much, Carmen protested. It's not nearly enough. Marcus stood up, still holding Sophie's hand. I've been thinking about this for weeks. Do you know how many buildings we own? How many people work in them? Struggling to make ends meet while keeping our properties running? It's unconscionable that I've been so focused on profit margins that I never thought about the human cost. He looked at Carmen seriously. This isn't charity, and it's not because of you. Or rather, it is because of you, but not in the way you think. You and Sophie showed me that I'd stopped seeing people. I'd become so isolated in my grief that I forgot there's a whole world out there full of people working hard, trying their best, deserving better than what they're getting. Sophie wiped her eyes. So I can still be a veterinarian? You can be anything you want to be, Marcus promised. And 10 years from now, when you're in veterinary school, I'm going to tell everyone I know about the amazing young woman who asked me to have coffee when I needed a friend. Sophie threw her arms around his waist, hugging him tightly. Over her head, Marcus met Carmen's eyes. She was crying too, but they were different tears now. That evening, after Sophie had fallen asleep on the conference room couch, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster, Marcus and Carmen stood by the windows looking out at the Chicago skyline. You didn't have to do that, Carmen said softly. Yes, I did. For Sophie, for all the other kids out there who have dreams, but can't see how to reach them. For you, because you shouldn't have to work 3 jobs to provide for your daughter. And for me, because I needed to remember what my success is supposed to be for. Carmen turned to him. Can I tell you something? Always. When I first started working here, I thought you were the coldest, most intimidating man I'd ever seen. You'd walk past us cleaning staff like we didn't exist, like we were invisible. Marcus winced. I'm sorry. Let me finish. Then Sophie asked to have coffee with you, and I was terrified. I thought you'd be angry. that I'd lose my job. But you said yes, and every week since then, I've watched you transform. You smile now. You learn people's names. Yesterday, I saw you hold the elevator for one of the janitors and actually ask him about his day. He told me about his grandson's baseball game. They won. Carmen smiled. You're becoming the person Sophie saw in you from the beginning. The kind man hiding under all that pain. She has that effect on people. You both do. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Marcus took a deep breath. Carmen, I need to tell you something, and it might complicate things. She looked at him, waiting. I have feelings for you. Real feelings. It started with gratitude, with appreciation for the gift you and Sophie gave me, but it's become more than that. When I wake up in the morning, you're the first thing I think about. When something good happens at work, you're the person I want to tell. And when I see you on Thursdays, it's the best part of my week. Carmen's breath caught. Marcus, I know the complications. I know you work for a company I do business with. I know people will talk, will assume things. I know I'm probably too old for you, too damaged, too... She stopped him by placing her fingers against his lips. You're none of those things. You're a man who lost his way and found it again. You're someone who treats my daughter like she matters, who listens to her dreams and makes them possible. You're someone who looks at me like I'm more than just a woman in a cleaning uniform. You are so much more than that. I have feelings for you too, Carmen admitted. I've been fighting them because I was afraid of losing my job, afraid of Sophie getting hurt if things don't work out, afraid of dishonoring Miguel's memory. Your husband sounds like he was a good man. I'm not trying to replace him. I know. And Miguel would have liked you. He always said that a real man is measured by how he treats people who can't do anything for him. By that standard, you've become a very real man. Marcus cupped her face gently. So, where do we go from here? Slowly, Carmen said. For Sophie's sake and ours, we take it slow, we're careful, and we see where this goes. I can do slow. I've waited 4 years. I can wait a little longer. They didn't kiss that night, though Marcus wanted to desperately. Instead, they sat together on the couch, watching Sophie sleep, talking quietly about their hopes and fears, their past and possible future. It was more intimate than any kiss could have been. The next morning, Marcus called an emergency meeting with his executive team in the HR department. I want a comprehensive review of compensation and benefits for every employee in every building we own or manage. I want to know who's working multiple jobs to make ends meet. I want to know who's one medical emergency away from financial disaster. I want numbers, and I want solutions. His CFO looked concerned. Sir, implementing significant changes could impact our profit margins. Then let them be impacted. What good is profit if we're building it on the backs of people who can't afford to take their kids to the doctor? Marcus's voice was firm. We're going to do better. We're going to be better. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can clean out their desk. The changes rolled out over the next few months. Living wages, better health care, the scholarship fund, child care assistance, emergency financial aid for employees facing crisis. It cost the company millions, but productivity went up, turnover went down, and Marcus slept better at night. His Thursday afternoons with Carmen and Sophie continued, though now they sometimes extended into evenings. He'd take them to dinner, simple places where Sophie could be loud and messy and 7. He'd go to Sophie's school events, sitting in the audience with Carmen, cheering as Sophie sang off-key in the school concert or presented her science project about butterflies. People did talk, of course. There were whispers in the office, speculation about his relationship with the cleaning lady. Marcus addressed it directly in a company-wide email. My personal life is my own business. However, I want to be clear that Ms. Carmen Reyes is a valued friend who, along with her daughter, has helped me through a difficult period in my life. Any employee who has a problem with that is welcome to discuss it with me directly. Any employee who treats Ms. Reyes or her daughter with anything less than complete respect will be terminated immediately." The whispers stopped. 6 months after that first cup of coffee, Marcus did something he never thought he'd do again. He opened his heart completely. It happened on a Saturday afternoon. He'd invited Carmen and Sophie to his penthouse apartment for the first time. Sophie ran around exploring, exclaiming over the view, the fancy kitchen, the grand piano he'd never learned to play. Carmen stood in the living room, taking it all in. "This is beautiful, Marcus. But it's so big for just one person." "It is," he agreed. "I bought it after Rachel died, thinking a new place would help me move on. But it just became another expensive tomb. I've been thinking about selling it, getting something smaller, somewhere with more life." "Like what?" "Like a house, maybe, with a yard where a dog could run around, where a little girl could play." Carmen's eyes met his. "Marcus, what are you saying?" He took her hands. "I'm saying that for the first time in 4 years I can imagine a future. And in that future I see you and Sophie. I see family dinners and homework help and school events. I see someone to come home to, someone to share my life with, not just my Thursday afternoons." "We come as a package deal," Carmen said, her voice trembling. "Sophie and me. I can't separate us. I wouldn't want you to. Sophie is part of why I fell in love with you. She showed me it was possible to care again, to open up, to let people in. And you showed me it was worth it. You love me? I love you both. I love Sophie's endless questions and her terrible jokes and the way she sees the world as full of possibilities. I love your strength, your grace, the way you mother your daughter, the way you've somehow made me feel like I'm worth something again." Carmen pulled him down and kissed him, finally, properly. It was sweet and soft and full of promise. Sophie's voice broke through the moment. "Are you guys kissing? Does this mean Marcus is going to be my new dad?" They broke apart, laughing. Carmen looked at her daughter. "Sophie, it's more complicated than that." "No, it's not," Sophie said with all the confidence of a 7-year-old. "He loves you, you love him, we all love each other. That's what makes a family, right?" Marcus knelt down to Sophie's level. "Your mom's right that it's complicated. I can't replace your father. He was your dad, and he'll always be your dad. But if your mom says it's okay, I'd like to be part of your family, to be there for you, to help take care of you, to love you like you deserve to be loved." Sophie considered this seriously. "Can I call you Marcus, Dad? So everyone knows you're both important." "You can call me whatever makes you comfortable. Marcus, Dad it is." She threw her arms around his neck. "This is better than I thought it would be when I asked if I could have coffee with you. Way better." Over her shoulder, Marcus met Carmen's eyes. She was crying happy tears, and he felt his own eyes burning. Who knew that accepting an invitation to coffee from a 7-year-old would lead to this? To healing, to hope, to love, to family. They took it slow, just as they'd promised. Carmen didn't move in right away, wanting to make sure Sophie adjusted to the changes. Marcus sold his penthouse and bought a house in a good school district, with a big yard and an extra bedroom that became Sophie's on weekends. He put in a jungle gym and planted a garden because Carmen mentioned she loved fresh flowers. He proposed a year later, not with a huge production, but on a Thursday afternoon over coffee. Sophie was there, because it seemed right that she should be part of the moment that started with her. The ring was simple, elegant, suitable for a woman who spent her days working hard. Carmen cried when she said yes, and Sophie cheered so loudly that Patricia came running to make sure everything was okay. They married in the spring, a small ceremony in Marcus's backyard with close friends and family. Sophie was the flower girl, taking her job very seriously and making sure every petal was placed perfectly. When Marcus and Carmen exchanged vows, they each included promises to Sophie too, making her officially part of their family in every way that mattered. The adoption papers came through 6 months later. Sophie's last name became Rothwell Reyes, honoring both the father who gave her life and the father who chose her. When the judge asked Sophie if she understood what adoption meant, she answered with the wisdom of an 8-year-old. "It means he promises to love me forever, even when I'm being annoying." The courtroom erupted in laughter, and Marcus pulled his daughter, into a tight hug. Especially when you're being annoying. 5 years after that first cup of coffee, Marcus stood in the backyard of their home watching Sophie play with their 2 rescue dogs. Carmen came out with lemonade, settling into the chair next to him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About how different my life could have been if I'd said no that day. If I'd been too busy, too important, too wrapped up in my grief to have coffee with a 7-year-old girl." "But you didn't say no." "No, I didn't. Best decision I ever made." Sophie ran over, covered in dirt and dog hair. "Marcus. Dad, can Lily and Max sleep in my room tonight? They're scared of the thunderstorm." Marcus pretended to consider this seriously, even though they all knew he'd never deny her anything within reason. "Only if you promise to actually sleep instead of playing with them all night." "I promise." She hugged him quickly, leaving dirt all over his shirt, and ran back to the dogs. Carmen laughed, brushing the dirt off him. "You're a pushover." "I know. It's one of my best qualities." He pulled her close, kissing her temple. "You know what tomorrow is?" "Thursday. Our day. What do you say we make it a family tradition? Thursday coffee for all 3 of us?" "I think that sounds perfect, though Sophie drinks hot chocolate now, not coffee. Details." Marcus smiled, watching his daughter play, feeling his wife's warmth beside him, and marveling at how completely his life had transformed. He'd been a man drowning in grief, convinced that happiness was something that happened to other people, something he'd had and lost forever. Then a little girl with wild curly hair and a brave heart had asked a simple question, "Can I have coffee with you?" And everything changed. The love came slowly, carefully, built on a foundation of Thursday afternoons and honest conversations, and choosing, every day, to be present for each other. It wasn't the passionate whirlwind of his youth. It was something steadier, deeper, more real. Carmen had taken his money and status and set it all aside, seeing instead the lonely man who needed connection. She'd let him into her life and Sophie's, trusting him with her daughter's heart when trust didn't come easily. She'd shown him that starting over didn't mean forgetting, that loving again didn't diminish what came before. And Sophie, remarkable Sophie, had seen beyond the cold exterior to the person underneath. She'd offered friendship when he didn't know he needed it, family when he didn't think he deserved it, and love simply because she believed everyone deserved to be loved. As the sun set over their backyard, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Marcus said a silent thank you to Rachel. "Thank you for loving me, for showing me what family could be, and for somehow leading me to this second chance." Then he wrapped his arms around Carmen and called Sophie over for a group hug, because Thursday tradition or not, any moment was the right moment to hold your family close and remember how lucky you were to have them. "I love you both," he said, meaning it with every fiber of his being. "We love you too, Marcus, Dad," Sophie said, squirming but not pulling away. And Carmen simply kissed him, her smile saying everything that words couldn't quite capture. In the end, it really was that simple. Love prevailed, not because there were no obstacles, no doubts, no fears. Love prevailed because 3 people chose it, nurtured it, fought for it, and believed in it even when the world questioned. It all started with a cup of coffee and a brave little girl's question, and it led to everything that mattered: healing, hope, and home.